First story. I mistakenly told my mom that my dad cheated on her after he grounded me for smoking. Now they are divorcing, and no one wants me or is fighting for me. My dad blames me for their divorce, and I regret every damn thing. This started about 6 months ago, but honestly, the mess probably started way before that. I'm 16, and I've always been kind of in the middle of my parents' issues, even when they didn't realize it. I don't mean like huge fights or abuse or anything like that, just tension, quiet judgment. My mom's always been intense controlling, really. Everything had to be her way. My dad, he's more chill, but that also means he sometimes avoids confrontation until it's too late. They weren't toxic or anything, but they weren't exactly happy either. I think they stayed together for me, or maybe just out of habit. So fast forward to around 6 months ago. My mom had a business trip for a few days, and my dad was the one home with me. I wasn't exactly a rebel, but I was definitely pushing limits more and more around then. I had started hanging out with this new group at school. They were cool, older, and yeah, they smoked weed. One day after school, I went to a park with them, and I stupidly joined in. We didn't even try to hide it that well, and one of their parents caught us and called all our parents. My dad was furious when he found out. He grounded me immediately, took my phone for a week, and said I need to call my mom and tell her myself. That was part of the punishment, he said, if I was old enough to make that decision. I was old enough to face the consequences. I panicked. I don't know why. I knew my mom would go nuclear. She'd probably try to get me drug tested, maybe even change my school. She's always had this zero-tolerance approach to anything she doesn't agree with. Growing up, if I even said I liked a song she thought was inappropriate, she'd block it from Spotify. So when I called her, I lied. I told her that I had come home and found another woman at the house with my dad. I didn't describe anything dramatic. I just said she was there, looked flustered when I came in, and that they were in the kitchen talking and too close. That's all I said. But it was enough. My mom went silent on the other end. I could feel her heart breaking in real time, and I still said nothing to stop it. She just said, "Okay, thank you for telling me," and hung up. Immediately, I felt sick. I don't think I even fully understood why I said it. I think I just wanted to distract her, to make her focus on something else besides me. Maybe I thought if she was mad at my dad, I'd be off the hook. It was dumb. It was selfish. It was wrong. But the thing is, it worked. At least for me. She didn't bring up the weed at all when she got home. She was cold to my dad, though. Ice cold. And at first, I didn't understand just how far she'd take it. She barely looked at him that first night. She wouldn't let him touch her. I could feel it in the air, thick, silent, awful. And he was confused. He asked me later if I knew what was wrong. I lied again and said no. Over the next week, it got worse. They fought behind closed doors, but I heard everything. She accused him. He denied it. She said she knew because I told her. That's when I realized how serious it had gotten. She actually believed it. And he thought I had just seen something and misinterpreted it. He came to me, sat me down, and asked gently, "Did you really see something inappropriate?" His eyes were tired. Red. I shook my head and finally admitted, "No, I lied." He looked hollow. He nodded and walked out of the room. That was worse than any yelling. He told my mom the truth, that I admitted it. But she didn't believe him. She said I was just covering for him. That he probably forced me to say that. That now I was part of some twisted cover-up. From there, things spiraled. She started demanding his phone every day. His passwords. She checked his credit card statements and texts, and even his location history. When he said no to the tracking app, she lost it. Screamed that if he had nothing to hide, he wouldn't refuse. After a couple of weeks of that, my dad changed all his passwords. He told her that if she didn't trust him at all, there was nothing to fix. I kept waiting for things to calm down, for her to believe me, or at least to listen. I wrote her a letter apologizing and explaining. She didn't even mention it. It was like I wasn't even part of it anymore, just a tool she used to dig deeper. Every day after school, I walked into a war zone. They barely spoke unless it was to argue. Meals were silent. No TV together. No jokes. No family. Just two people pretending not to hate each other. And me sitting between them carrying this guilt I couldn't shake. Then last week, everything cracked. My dad served her with divorce papers. She just looked at him and said, "Figures." Then she walked out of the room. That night, they told me we were getting a divorce. I broke. I said through tears, This is all my fault. And my dad just said, a little bit. It felt like a slap. Like being told everything I feared was true. I wanted him to say no, that it wasn't, that he loved me anyway. But he didn't. My mum jumped in and called him an arsehole. She said it was his fault, not mine. But neither of them really fought for me. Not then. They just kept fighting each other. I went to my room after that. I didn't cry anymore. I couldn't. I felt numb. Like something inside me had broken. And I didn't even have the right to be upset, because I was the one who cracked it. The next morning, nobody said anything. My dad made coffee. My mum scrolled on her phone. I packed my bag and left for school like normal. It was like we'd all decided silently to stop pretending. My dad moved into the guest room. My mum started locking her bedroom door. I couldn't sleep. I had this constant knot in my stomach. Every time the house was quiet, I felt like I was waiting for another bomb to go off. I know a lot of people say kids blame themselves for divorces when it's not really their fault. But this time, I can't even lie to myself. I know I caused this. But it also made me look harder at things I hadn't paid attention to before. My parents weren't okay before this. They were tense around each other for months, maybe even years. My mum micromanaged everything. She had to approve the groceries, the clothes my dad wore, and even how he folded towels. It sounds small, but it added up. She never trusted him to handle things on his own. And my dad? He let it happen. He kept things bottled up. He made sarcastic comments instead of speaking up. When she went on rants about how this family would fall apart without her, he'd just nod and walk away. I think I was the match. But the house was already soaked in gasoline. Since the divorce talk, everything's colder. My dad's been quiet. He still talks to me, still checks in, but he's not the same. I don't think I've seen him laugh in weeks. I think hearing me say it was my fault broke him a little. Like I finally voiced something he was trying not to admit to himself. My mum's different too. She's angrier. But it's not the yelling kind. It's this quiet rage, like she's punishing both of us by pretending we're invisible. She walks past me without making eye contact. If she talks to me, it's short, cold, like I'm just another burden in a list of things she has to deal with. And I don't even know how to fix it. I apologized. More than once. I owned it. I told them both what I did and why. I told them it wasn't about hurting anyone, it was a panic move. A stupid lie. I didn't know it would spiral like this. But the damage is done. They're getting divorced. My family is splitting up because I didn't want to admit I smoked weed. I think the worst part is how alone I feel now. My friends at school don't know anything. I don't want to tell them. It feels too big, too messy. And I can't go to either of my parents because I feel like they both blame me, even if they won't say it directly. I've been thinking about what comes next, who I'll live with, how holidays will work, if they'll ever be in the same room again. I wonder if they'll start dating other people, if I'll have to pretend to be okay with that. Part of me keeps hoping one of them will stop this, that someone will fight for the family, that my mum will finally believe my dad, or that my dad will try harder to make it work. But I don't think that's happening. Not anymore. So yeah, I lied. And that lie broke something that was already fragile. I didn't mean to destroy my family, but I think I did. I don't even know what to do now. I've already apologized. I'm trying to stay out of the way. I'm doing better at school. I cut off the group that got me into smoking. I'm trying. But none of it seems to matter. So if anyone's reading this, especially if you're a parent or someone who's been in a similar situation, what would you even want from your kid if they did what I did? How do I make things right when I can't fix what's broken? I don't need sympathy. I just need to know how to move forward when it feels like no matter what I do, it's already too late. Comments. Comment 1. You're not the victim here. You lied to weaponize your mom's worst fear against your dad just to dodge punishment for smoking weed. That's not a dumb mistake. That's a conscious choice to throw someone under the bus. At 14, you're old enough to understand that accusing someone of cheating isn't a small thing. It blows up marriages, homes, and people's lives. You detonated a nuclear bomb, and now you're shocked at the fallout. Your mom didn't do better either. Instead of handling things rationally, she latched onto your lie and spiraled into paranoia, refusing to even consider your retraction. Her behavior is why this marriage couldn't survive. Zero trust, and apparently no emotional regulation. But your lie was the trigger, and your dad is the one paying the highest price. Your apology doesn't erase what happened. You're facing a harsh but real lesson. Actions have consequences. Own it fully. No, I didn't mean to. You did it. What you can do now is stop making it about your pain and focus on the damage you caused. Ask your dad what he needs. Show not tell your parents that you're growing from this. And never, ever lie to save yourself at someone else's expense again. That's the kind of mistake that sticks with people for life. Comment 2. Your dad didn't just lose his marriage, he lost his reputation with the one person he trusted most. That's on you. You made a decision to manipulate the truth in a way that directly attacked his character. You framed him for the one thing that can instantly destroy a family. And your mom. She grabbed onto that lie like a weapon and ran with it. Never questioned it. Never asked your dad seriously. She treated his denials like proof of guilt. And when you admitted the lie, she still refused to believe it. That tells me she was looking for a reason to blow things up, and you handed her the perfect excuse. You're not a child in this situation anymore. You're the instigator. And no matter how you rewrite the intentions, the outcome is what matters. You nuked your dad's life. This is the kind of damage people carry forever. So stop asking how to make it go away. You can't. What you can do is get real. Get uncomfortable. Ask your dad how you can earn trust again, not just with him, but with yourself. This is your wake-up call. You wanted to avoid trouble, and now you have the biggest trouble of your life. Grow from it, or repeat it. Comment 3. Harsh truth? You don't get to center yourself as the heartbroken one when you knowingly lied about your dad cheating. That's not immature mistake territory. That's character-defining behavior. You used your mom's insecurity as a shield to deflect your own guilt, and it worked for a while. Now the damage is irreversible, and you want to crawl back and undo it like it's a homework mistake. Your mom failed too. She didn't do due diligence. She went full scorched earth on your dad and never came back down. Even after your confession, she clung to the lie like it was more comforting than the truth. That's emotional immaturity on a whole different level. No therapy, no reflection, just control and suspicion. But here's the thing, you had a choice. You didn't make a slip of the tongue, you made a calculation. And you bet your dad's integrity on it. And he lost. Want to fix it? You can't, not completely. But you can stop centering yourself in the fallout. Show your dad you actually understand what you took from him. Accept that your mom may never take accountability. And from now on, speak the truth even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. That's what adults do. And thanks to your lie, you've officially been thrown into the adult consequences pool. Update. I didn't expect to write an update. Honestly, I didn't expect the kind of reaction I got either. I posted here hoping someone would understand. Not justify what I did, not excuse it, but understand it. Instead, I got flooded with hate. DMs, comments. Some even said I deserved to be disowned. That I ruined my dad's life and destroyed my family on purpose. I'm 16. And yeah, I messed up. Badly. But the way people talk to me, it was like they forgot. I'm still a kid trying to figure things out in a house that's been crumbling long before I opened my mouth. I never claimed to be a victim. I admitted what I did. I didn't try to sugarcoat it. But the hate I got was next level. Some people said I centered myself in the fallout. I wasn't trying to make this about me. I was trying to explain what it's been like for me since this all went down. That's what the sub is for, isn't it? Getting things off your chest. I didn't expect hugs. I didn't expect sympathy. But I thought maybe someone would say, "You did something awful, but here's how you move forward." Instead, it was just pitchforks. Here's what none of you know. I haven't gone to a single friend's birthday party in 6 months. I've turned down every sleepover, every weekend hangout, every school dance. Not because I wasn't invited, but because I didn't feel like I deserved to go. I've been punishing myself quietly while everyone else threw stones. My friends stopped reaching out because I kept saying no. I've isolated myself. I used to be pretty social. Now I eat lunch alone or pretend I'm studying. I deleted social media for weeks because I couldn't look at happy families or friends hanging out without feeling like I'd lost something I'll never get back. My parents barely speak. The silence is worse than yelling. I sit in the living room and pretend to do homework, while my mom slams cabinets and my dad stays locked in the guest room. I keep headphones on most of the time, not to listen to anything, just to block out how broken the house feels. I didn't lie out of malice. I lied because I panicked. I was scared of what my mom would do if she found out I was smoking. She's strict beyond strict. She tracks my phone, reads my texts. Once she found a text from a classmate that just had a cuss word in it and grounded me for 2 weeks. I knew she'd go ballistic if she found out about the weed. I thought if I said something that would distract her, maybe I could buy time. Was it selfish? Yeah. But I wasn't in a calm, rational state. I was terrified. And no, that doesn't make it right. But it does make it human. People said I should have known better. Maybe I should have. But I've grown up in a house where fear runs everything. You don't speak up. You don't admit mistakes. You cover, hide, deflect. That's what I saw. That's what I learned. After my dad served the divorce papers, I felt like a shadow. Nobody checked in on me. Nobody asked how I was doing. My mom got cold. My dad got distant. I'd sit at dinner alone while one of them wasn't hungry and the other already ate. I went from being part of a family to being furniture in a house full of resentment. I wrote that post because I didn't know what else to do. I'm 16, and my parents are divorcing, and neither of them seems to want to deal with me. My mom's too busy interrogating every piece of my dad's digital footprint, and my dad, he's hurt. I see it. He doesn't trust her, and I don't think he even wants to fight anymore. Especially not for me. Here's the update. They're getting divorced for real. They're dividing up assets, and eventually, custody is going to be part of that conversation. Nobody has said anything official yet, but I know it's coming. I don't want to live with my mom. She's controlling. She's emotionally abusive. Not just to my dad, to me too. She nitpicks everything I wear, everything I eat, and who I talk to. She has this way of making me feel like I owe her for being born. If I mess up, she holds it over me for months. I don't feel safe talking to her. I never have. But I also don't feel like I can just ask my dad to take me. Not after everything. I don't even know if he wants to. He hasn't said it. He hasn't made a move either way. Maybe he thinks I belong with my mom. Or maybe he's just too tired to fight for anything anymore, including me. So now I'm stuck. I need a stable parent, and the only one I trust is the one I hurt most. The irony isn't lost on me. Here's what I am doing. I sat down with my dad yesterday and told him everything. No excuses. No softening. I told him how scared I was, how much I regret it, and how much I hate what I did. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I just said I was sorry. And I told him that if he didn't want me to stay with him after the divorce, I'd understand. He didn't say yes or no. He just said, "We'll figure it out." That's more than I expected. I also told him I didn't want to live with my mom. That I don't feel safe with her. He nodded. He said he already knew. I don't know what's going to happen next. Maybe he'll ask for custody. Maybe not. Maybe it'll get messy in court. But I do know this: I'm not lying anymore. Not to save myself. Not to protect anyone. I've learned my lesson. One lie cost me my family. I'm not doing that again. So yeah, I messed up. But I'm trying. And if people still want to call me a monster, fine. But I'm still here, still trying to be better, even if nobody sees it. Thanks to the few people who actually gave real advice. I needed it. And for those who just came to crucify me, hope it made you feel better. I've got enough guilt already. Comments. Comment 1. You want to be seen as more than a liar, but you still talk like someone who thinks they should get partial credit for suffering. You isolated yourself, yeah, but your dad lost his marriage. You missed parties. He missed the last 6 months of his peace. One isn't equal to the other. That said, I do respect that you sat down with your dad and set it all straight. That's more than most adults do. But don't let that be the finish line. You want to live with him. Earn that trust back. Show him with consistency, not words. Be the reason he sleeps easier, not the reason he has to keep his guard up. If your mom's abusive, then yeah, you shouldn't live with her. But don't weaponize that either. Don't turn this into another strategic move. Be honest, all the way through this time. That's how you fix what's left. Comment 2. You're 16. That's old enough to know that some mistakes can't be undone. And this was one of them. But you're also young enough to decide what kind of person you're going to be from this point forward. This isn't about whether Reddit forgives you, it's about whether you can rebuild trust with the people you nearly shattered. Your mom? Sounds like she was already emotionally unstable. But your dad? He didn't deserve any of this. And whether he takes custody or not, he deserves a daughter who owns her mistakes like an adult. Not someone who keeps deflecting with, "I was scared." You want a second chance? Then stop performing the apology and start living the consequences. Do the boring, painful, unrecognized work of earning back dignity. That's how you move forward. Not with another post. With action. Comment 3. Wow, so you missed a couple birthday parties and deleted Instagram for a bit. How brave. Meanwhile, your dad lost his marriage, reputation, and probably a chunk of his sanity because you decided a fake cheating scandal was a good distraction from getting grounded for smoking. But yes, you're the one we should feel bad for. And now you want custody with the same dad you lit on fire because your mom is suddenly controlling. Incredible. Truly a redemption arc for the ages. What's next? Writing a memoir titled Oops, My Bad. How I accidentally blew up my family, but learned something, I guess. Here's a thought. Maybe stop treating apologies like performance art. You don't get a cookie for finally telling the truth after the damage is done. You want your dad to fight for you. Maybe act like someone worth fighting for consistently, quietly, without needing a standing ovation every time you do the bare minimum. Second story. My neighbor is putting up posters accusing me of child SA, and the police told me to ignore them or take them down myself. So I moved into a new neighborhood in August. Shortly after I moved in, flyers started appearing on utility poles, etc., alerting the residents that a child sexual predator had moved to the neighborhood. The flyer contains a cropped screenshot of the person they are mistaking me for his entry on the sex offender registry. We do share a name, but that's it. My name is not uncommon. I'm not Joe Smith, but I am not Eusebius Cadmerenius either. Either way, the person posting these is definitely aware of the fact that it's not me, as they cropped the offender's mugshot out of the screenshot and replaced it with a picture from my LinkedIn profile. I have looked up not me's entry on the sex offender registry, and he's a fat white guy in his 60s. I am an average build mixed dude who looks black in my 30s. And to be clear, while there's no such thing as a minor as X crime, this guy is on the registry for forcible SA of a child under 13 or something along those lines. I spoke to the police as soon as I found out about the flyers via my wife, which must have been a fun surprise for her to see when she was walking home from the train. They basically said, "That sucks, but how do you expect us to find out who is putting them up?" I was confronted by a neighbor yesterday. Luckily, I bookmarked not me's sex offender registry page on my phone, and the guy who confronted me was level-headed enough to immediately apologize. He knew who was putting the flyers up, gave me the guy's name, and described him as kind of a conspiracy nut. Great. The abundant misspellings and caps for emphasis on the flyer should have tipped me off. Anyway, I have no interest in confronting this guy myself, because there's a very low chance of the interaction ending in any manner that involves all of his teeth remaining in his head. I called the police again, and this time their take on it is more or less, well, being wrong isn't a crime. Just keep taking the flyers down when you see them and try to ignore it. This was last night. Ignoring this isn't an option. I am planning on going to the department in person today when I get back from work. Has a crime been committed here, or is my only remedy going to be civil court? I feel like this is way beyond the standard type of libel that might F with my ability to get a job or something, as there's a non-zero chance that this kind of bullshit could lead to a vigilante type trying something. I've got something of a hectic day at work, otherwise I would have gone in late to get my arse to the police department earlier, so I might not respond here right away. But if any more information or clarification is needed, I'll get to it as soon as I can. Thanks in advance for the help. Relevant comments. Comment 1. A rare case of defamation per se, where no damages are needed since Layup is falsely accused of being a criminal. Bonus points for the police, either not knowing or not caring that NY's Ex-Offender Registration Act Section 168Q makes misusing the ex-offender registry a crime. So this is not just civil court stuff. Not even going to pile on the fact that the person making the posters actually photoshopped Layup's picture over a totally different person's ex-offender poster, making it trivial to prove they knew this was a false accusation. The only tricky part is proving who is putting the posters out, though. Hearsay is not admissible in court, and the cops refuse to investigate. Comment 2. The only tricky part is proving who is putting the posters out, though. Hearsay is not admissible in court, and the cops refuse to investigate. A warning about the consequences of misusing the ex-offenders list posted on the police Facebook page with a direct reference to the present situation could be enough to stop it. At least it would alert the neighborhood to what's going on. OP. I'm the OP from the original legal advice thread, which is now locked. The guy who confronted me was incredibly conciliatory after I showed him the actual ex-offender registry page. We exchanged contact information, and he offered to help me clear things up. I didn't get specifics, but it seemed like his knowledge about who put the posters up was firsthand. So I am going to reach out to him about speaking to the police or testifying, depending on how this goes. OP answered a lot of questions in the comments on Bola. Comment 1. Hi, OP from the original legal advice thread here. The hectic day at work I mentioned in that post was about 10 times worse than I expected, so I just got a chance to pull it up a few minutes ago and found it locked. I am a longtime lurker and knew about this subreddit, so I was able to find this. I wanted to thank everyone for the great advice and reply to a few things I saw. Reddit is making me wait roughly 10 minutes between posts, presumably because this is a brand new account. So I am going to reply to a few things I saw on the original thread, and a few people on this one in this top-level comment to avoid the waiting game. OP. First off, a bunch of people mentioned potential difficulty with collecting a judgment if I go the civil route, and this dude doesn't own property. The north half of my block is all apartments, most of which are rentals. The south half, where I live, is all single-family houses. I don't know where the person hanging the posters lives, but I don't care about making a buck off of this. My preference is, by far, to avoid any civil litigation in favor of handling this through the police if at all possible. But if I sue this guy, I don't care about collecting. To be blunt, my wife and I both have reasonably high-paying jobs, so if I were to sue this guy, it would be more about extracting a pound of flesh or forcing him to deal with a judgment hanging over his head. I know it's petty, and I am not normally the vindictive type, but in this context I am perfectly content to be an arsehole about it. Comment 2. Layop said he was mixed and appeared black. I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. Crackpot conspiracy theories and bigotry are often correlated. OP, one of the first things my wife said about the situation was that she wouldn't be surprised if this is related to the fact that the only black guys she's seen on the block since moving in are me and a maintenance man in one of the buildings down the street. I try to avoid jumping right to assuming that negative interactions with other people are rooted in racism. But unfortunately, I am proven wrong on that more often than I care to admit. And the fact that racism and conspiracy bullshit tend to go hand in hand. Yeah. Comment 3. And if OP's wife is of a different race, that usually adds a lot of animosity in a racist bigot's mind. OP, my wife is as white as the driven snow. She's actually Jewish. And if this is rooted in the standard brand of conspiracy whackjob racism, it's a good thing this arsehole doesn't know about it. Comment 4. All legal avenues aside, if this were me, I'd be going around putting up my own posters acknowledging that I'm aware of what's going on and making it very clear that it isn't me. Include my picture and the actual ex-offender's pictures side by side, and a link to the registry if anyone actually cares to write it down and check for themselves, and, finally, a notice of intent to sue for defamation. He's not wrong in thinking this could lead to some serious vigilante actions against him if it's not nipped in the bud as soon as possible. OP. This is fantastic advice, and I will definitely be putting my own posters up. Thank you for suggesting it. Anyway, I'm heading home in 2 or 3 hours. I mentioned this elsewhere, but the guy who confronted me was very conciliatory once I showed him the actual ex-offender registry page. We exchanged contact information, so I am going to reach out and see if I can count on him to help with identifying this guy, as his knowledge of who it is seems to be firsthand. I'm stopping by the police department when I get home, so we'll see how that goes. Again, thanks for the help. Update. This will probably come as an anticlimactic update for some people, as I won't be pursuing any sort of legal remedies to the situation, either criminal or civil. I'm going to make up names this time around instead of describing my interactions with somebody to identify them. On Friday night, I got in touch with the guy who had confronted me and backed down when I showed him the actual ex-offender registry page, Joe. Turns out he's on the co-op board in the Flyer Guys Steve's building. Steve has a sister Ann who comes around his apartment pretty often. Joe ran into her on Friday afternoon and told her about the situation. He asked me if I'd be willing to grab a cup of coffee with the two of them before getting the police involved. I agreed to this, and we met up on Sunday afternoon. So as it turns out, Steve is actually pretty sick, well beyond anything along the lines of the standard racist conspiracy theory type. In fact, racism isn't a part of it at all. He believed that I had ties to the whole Epstein situation, which, to him, would make it easy enough for me to change my appearance. Anne promised me that he's nothing like this when his meds are working, and apparently they've been less than effective of late. She'd brought this up to someone involved in his treatment, and they had planned to address it, but she didn't realize just how bad things had become. I have a close family member who has an illness that has resulted in a few episodes of psychosis. He's one of the kindest, most thoughtful people I know 99% of the time, but it's been physically dangerous to be around him during his psychotic breaks, so I feel for him. Anyway, Steve is currently receiving inpatient treatment to get back on the right track, and will be attending a partial hospitalization program after his release to make sure that his meds remain effective. Joe wrote a letter about the situation, a copy of which is going to be delivered to each resident of his building. He's also reached out to members of the co-op boards that he knows in a couple other buildings on the block, and they've agreed to do the same. Anne is going to post copies in the same location Steve had been putting them up and slide copies under the doors of the single-family houses on my side of the block. She's genuinely incredibly apologetic, and I don't see any reason to push the issue with law enforcement or in court, provided Steve is getting adequate treatment, so something like this doesn't happen again. So yeah, all things considered, while this isn't necessarily a happy ending, I'm glad this guy's getting the help he needs, and that there are people who are willing to step up and help with clearing my name. All in all, the resolution has made a greater impression on me than the issue that necessitated its development, and I feel like I picked a pretty good block to live on. Thanks again for all of the advice, and apologies to anyone who had their justice boner killed. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.